What is up, everybody? We're rolling audio here today on episode 78 of The Harder Show. How are you doing today? I hope you're doing absolutely fan-freaking-tastic. Thank you so much for tuning in and clicking that play button. On this very interesting episode of the podcast, I'm going to be exploring some unsolved mysteries of the world. Very different topic for here on The Harder Show. I hope you guys are excited. I'm excited because some of these mysteries, quote unquote, they're not really necessarily mysteries. People have said that they have claimed that they have explained them and that they're not mysteries. And there's definitely better mysteries out there. But these are 10 that I personally think are either the most interesting to me, the ones that I kind of know the most, or the ones that I find just the most odd and that just fascinate me as to what the hell is actually going on. So definitely very interesting topic. Really hope you guys are looking forward to that. I also, very cool, have a song to play for you guys that I have been given exclusive rights to play for you. Awesome track from the awesome band Fear the Unknown. So you guys look forward to that at the end of the podcast. If you have no interest in all what I'm talking about and just want to hear the song, you can go ahead and skip to the end of the podcast. But I would recommend you listen because it's definitely going to be a very interesting podcast. Talking about unsolved mysteries and that kind of thing. Definitely very, very cool. Very interesting topic for the podcast. So really hope you guys are looking forward to that. I am continuing on, venturing on with my t-shirt pre-orders. So if you are someone who would like a Harder Show t-shirt, you want to support the podcast, every dollar off these t-shirts is going to go right back into the podcast to help pay for SoundCloud, help pay for new equipment. Also got some other things in the work for the podcast that are, so if you want to support that, be sure to hit me up for a t-shirt. They are an awesome t-shirt. The design is, of course, by my man, Mr. Jason Reese over at J Digital Arts. A high quality Gildan t-shirt, really nice cotton, high fiber count. Great t-shirt. I'm currently wearing mine. I literally wear mine like every day and it's still going. I've washed it 100 times. It still works great. It's still, it's a t-shirt. I don't know how it can work, but basically it's still in great shape and really comfy t-shirt. Not much else to say about it. It's a great t-shirt. Really highly recommend it as far as just to wear. Cool design. Who doesn't like that? The t-shirts are $25. $25 with any money that is made off of going directly back into the podcast. I'm not taking it to go out for dinner or anything. It's going right back into the podcast. So if you want to hit me up, pre-order a t-shirt, let me know. I'm still going to be doing the pre-order for a little bit here. Let me know what size you need. If it is a size that is over XL, I believe it might be over large, but I think it's over XL. It is going to be a little more money. It's going to be $30 instead of $25, but that's still pretty standard. I'm trying to keep the prices as low as I possibly can, but after my experiences last time with the t-shirts, I have to make sure that I make at least a little tiny little profit on these t-shirts. So hopefully you guys can understand that. Again, they're great t-shirts, so definitely be sure to hit me up if you would like one. But all that fun stuff out of the way, I want to roll right into this podcast here, this 10 Unsolved Mysteries right here on The Harder Show. This is going to be a journey, guys. Be sure to comment away as I'm going through my list in the podcast here if you have anything you'd like to add or any explanations maybe for some of these unsolved mysteries or fan theories or anything like that. You know, I love to talk to you guys about that kind of thing, but let's check out some of these unsolved mysteries. Let's get into it. Alright, so we're talking unsolved mysteries today, gang. I definitely think this is a very interesting topic. I've never really talked about anything like this before on the podcast, and I think this is pretty interesting. I'm into this kind of stuff. I don't really like the freaky shit that makes me think too hard, because just to me that's not as interesting. It's things that just seem like they should be very easily explained, but just can't seem to be. All of these stories and things I'm going to talk about today do not have any kind of official story. There's tons of theories and that kind of thing. I don't necessarily go into the theories or anything. I maybe talk about just what I'm going to do is talk about each event or item or whatever, kind of give a little brief history and blurb about it. and then talk about what I think about the whole thing. So definitely it's interesting. This isn't necessarily like a top 10 list in the sense of the 10 kind of unsolved mysteries and stuff that I think I like the 10 best ones. It's just, for me personally, the ones that I have heard and that don't make sense to me, or that I think are the most interesting, I guess, is probably the best way to put it for these. So like I said, I'm going to give a blurb about each one. If you want to learn more about any of these topics I'm going to talk about here today, be sure to look them up, because there's lots online for them. There's so much stuff, especially some of the ones I talk about. There's just tons of theories, and it's just crazy. You spend all day doing it. I kind of wrote out this little blurb, and it took me like 3 hours to get through everything, which is pretty hilarious, considering that, I figured it'd take me 10 minutes to do each one. But either way, without further ado, I'm going to get into each one of these mysteries here. Mysteries or not, and of course, be sure to comment. Let me know what you guys personally think about each one of these mysteries and these topics I'm going to discuss here, because this is discussion. This is, I think, one of the most commentable podcasts I've ever done, just as far as things to get people talking. I think this is the perfect kind of podcast to do it. So without further ado, let's just kind of go right into my list here. Starting at number 10, I have a book that is entitled The Voynich Manuscript. Now, this book was named after Polish-American antiquarian bookseller Wilfred M. Voynich, who acquired it in 1912. Now, this book, it's a detailed 240-page book written in a language or script that is completely unknown. Its pages are also filled with colorful drawings of strange diagrams, odd events, and planets that just don't even seem to exist to us, especially the plants and that kind of thing is kind of the most interesting part of this whole book. Certain herbs and that kind of thing. Adding to the intrigue of the document and the difficulty deciphering it, which is pretty crazy. The original author of the manuscript remains unknown, but carbon dating has revealed that its pages were made sometime between 1404 and 1438. It's been called the most mysterious manuscript in the world. Considering when it was made, I mean, that's pretty crazy to me if it was that old. And I mean, there was so much stuff we don't know about still about that time period. But there's enough that it's pretty interesting that we have a book that we have no idea what it says or anything in it. But some of the theories about the origin and nature of the manuscript, some believe that it was meant to be kind of like a pharmaceutical type thing, as it seems to be addressing kind of modern medicine, early modern medicine in the medieval times and that kind of thing. Many of the pictures of herbs and plants hint that it may have been some kind of textbook for an alchemist. That seems the most likely to me. That's probably most likely what it is. Many of the diagrams appear to be of astronomical origin, combined with the unidentifiable biological drawings, have even led some people to believe that it was of alien origin, which is definitely interesting. One thing that most theorists do agree on is the book is unlikely to be a hoax, given the time period, money, and the detailing it would require to make it. It's pretty crazy. Like I was saying, the fact that we have this book that's this old and we have no idea what it says. All the technology and that in the world, and we still can't seem to figure out what it is or what it's talking about. Is of Aryan origin? I have no idea. It's pretty crazy to me. You can look this up if you like, see pictures of it and that kind of thing. It's definitely very interesting. Looking at the pictures and that and trying to figure out, it mostly looks like herbs and plants and that kind of thing. So I do believe that it is some kind of a manuscript for an alchemist or something like that. But it's the fact that there was also like astrological, that kind of thing, and planets, and I don't know. The whole thing's just very weird. Is it a Traveler from Another World's book, perhaps? Is that a thing? I'm not going to sit here and argue this kind of thing, but me personally, I definitely think it is, maybe it was from some kind of small village or something that had its own language and that kind of thing that is undocumented. And it just happened to wind up in this guy's possession. I definitely don't believe it's a hoax, but I think, me personally, the most logical explanation is it's probably from some small unknown village or something. They had their own language, they had their own views on the world and their own planets and all this kind of thing, blah, 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 blah. But that seems most likely to me. The plants in the book haven't even been able to be identified yet. But it may have just been the way they were drawing them and that kind of thing. I mean, there's so much. It was probably plants that we didn't even know existed. So that's that. Definitely a very interesting read if you want to look this topic up. Any topics I talk about here today. Definitely some very interesting things. But let me know what you think of the book if you take some time to look it up, and let me know. It's the Voynich manuscript, Voynich. Definitely very, very interesting to think that there's a book that we just have no idea what it says. Pretty interesting stuff. There's lots of stories of unreadable manuscripts and ciphers and that kind of thing, but it's the fact that this book is so well preserved and so well detailed and that kind of thing that makes it very, very interesting to me personally anyway. But the next thing I'm going to talk about here is something that I think everyone knows about. And there's tons of different theories and explanations for this area. It's just interesting to me. It's always been interesting. It's a place I definitely want to visit one day. And that's Stonehenge. For thousands of years, Stonehenge has stood silently. It's never really given any clues as to the meaning of its existence. However, excavations have revealed that Stonehenge was actually built in 4 stages. So I have some dates here. In 1300 BC, a series of holes were dug for religious ceremony. More than 1,000 years later, the most dramatic stage of the building took place. Huge blue stones from mountains in Wales were lugged more than 240 miles to the Stonehenge site. Why would anyone do this before the wheel? Like, what? How? This is the thing that is the most weird about this whole Stonehenge thing, is how did they even do this? They would have had to have dragged them. I mean, just drag these stones 240 miles. The fact that really is a mystery how far these freaking drag these stones. The fact that, they could have, it really wouldn't have been that hard to find rocks closer nearby, but it was the fact that it was these specific stones is very, very weird. But then, of course, the stones were set up to form an incomplete double circle aligned perfectly with the midsummer sunrise, which is interesting. The third stage in 2000 BC saw the arrival of more stones transported by land from the Morbarrow Downs some 25 miles away. Finally, another 500 years and numerous generations had passed. Someone felt the need to rearrange the massive Welsh bluestones into the familiar horseshoe and circle we see today. Definitely very interesting. It's one of the most famous landmarks in the UK. Stonehenge, it's regarded as like a cultural icon at this point. It's protected by it's been protected as an ancient monument for quite a long time now. The site and its surroundings are actually owned by the Crown. Maybe we'll never really know what exactly could have been. Me personally, something like this, I mean, it was probably some kind of a burial ground, for religious burial ground or that kind of thing. Deposits containing human bone date from as early as 3000 BC, when the ditch and bank were first dug, and continued for at least another 500 years. So at some point, I feel that it was definitely a burial ground of some kind. And then, maybe they put up these religious stones that they thought were of whatever the frig, and they built a temple around it maybe, and then over time did it decay? I have no idea. It seems that it was definitely a burial ground of some point. Why were there all these stones set up? How the hell did they drag those stones 240 miles without wheels? It's just it really makes you think, kind of similar to the pyramids in that regard. How the hell did they do that in this time period? I have no idea. Maybe it's more, there are some crazy theories of, aliens came with their ships and they lifted the stones up and all this kind of bullshit. But personally, I think it was, definitely some kind of a burial ground and just some very determined people who had nothing better to do with their time. So, that's, I guess we'll call it that. As always, let me know what you guys think of Stonehenge if you have any more information. I couldn't find a whole lot on Stonehenge. Just a lot of kind of legal BS of who owns it and blah, 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 blah. And nothing really that was that interesting. Just a lot of crazy fan theories. Some people have said it was like, it's a highly religious spot, and that, like, I read one theory. I should have saved the bookmark, but it was like, some people say that's like a portal to like the afterlife or something. Just some weird stuff like that. But definitely some kind of a burial ground, and who knows? Maybe one day we will discover what exactly Stonehenge is and what exactly its purpose is. But until then, we will move on with my list here. Now, getting a little interesting now. I know the last two were a book and Stonehenge. I'm sure some people are already going, what the hell, TJ? We thought you were going to talk about something interesting. Well, I have something that is pretty interesting. I was definitely able to find a lot more out on this particular topic, and that is Jack the Ripper, probably the oldest unsolved murderer. Jack the Ripper is the best known name given to an unidentified serial killer, generally believed to have been active in the largely impoverished areas in and around the Whitechapel district in London in 1888. The name Jack the Ripper originated in a letter written by someone claiming to be the murderer that had heard the name in the media. The letter is widely believed to have been a hoax, and many people wrote letters and that kind of thing. There was hundreds and hundreds of letters. So obviously, as the murders kind of got more popular, more people were writing in claiming to be Jack the Ripper. He was also called the Whitechapel Murderer, obviously, as well as Leather Apron within the criminal case files. So that's definitely very interesting for Jack the Ripper there. Attacks ascribed to Jack the Ripper typically involved female prostitutes who lived and worked in the slums of the East End of England, whose throats were cut prior to abdominal mutilation. The removal of internal organs from at least 3 of the victims led to proposals that the killer had some anatomical or surgical knowledge. Rumors that the murders were connected infested in September and October in 1888, and letters were received by media outlets in Scotland Yard from writer or writers perpetrating to be the murderer. The From Hell letter received by George Lusk of the Whitechapel Vigilance Committee included half of a preserved human kidney taken from one of the victims. So basically, after a while, the public just began to call this guy Jack the Ripper, mainly because it was just these brutal murders that he would commit, and because the media, just the way the media was treating it and that kind of thing. But that letter, the From Hell letter, there's tons of letters that I found online and that kind of thing, but I find this one the most interesting and kind of the most messed up. The letter is, there's a lot of spelling errors and grammatical errors and that kind of thing, which leads obviously to believe that he was not very well educated, if this is a letter from Jack the Ripper. But if he has any kind of surgical knowledge, that's kind of weird. But the letter itself, it says, "From Hell, Mr. Lusk, sore. I send you half the kidney, Kidney, I took from one woman, preserved it for you to other pyres. I fried and ate it. Was very nice, N-I-S-E. I may send you the bloody knife that it took out if you only wait a while longer. Sign, catch me when you can, Mr. Lusk." Now, this one letter wasn't signed Jack the Ripper. That was actually an earlier letter, but I find this letter very weird. So I wanted to go ahead and include this one in. But there are hundreds of letters that were sent from people claiming to be Jack the Ripper. Extensive newspaper coverage bestowed widespread and enduring international notoriety on the Ripper, and his legend solidified. A police investigation into a series of 11 brutal killings in Whitechapel up to 1891 was unable to connect all the killings consecutively to the murders of 1888. 5 victims, Mary Ann Nichols, Annie Chapman, Elizabeth Stride, Catherine Edwards, and Mary Jane Kelly, also known as the Canonical Five, and their murders between the 31st of August and the 9th of November 1888 are often considered the most likely to be linked. The murders were never solved, and the legends surrounding them became a combination of genuine historical research, folklore, and just utter BS. some of the stuff you find on Jack the Ripper when you start looking shit up, it's just crazy. Some of the theories people have is just insane. But the term Ripperology was coined to describe the study and analysis of the Ripper cases. There are now over 100 theories about the Ripper's identity, and the murders have inspired many works of fiction. There's tons of stories. Nothing that I really found in my research that seemed to be concrete enough to give an opinion. I mean, obviously, he is long dead at this point. One thing I thought was interesting, I was doing some research, and some people had said, like, there was people that they thought were Jack the Ripper, but none of them were actually convicted. There was a doctor, and I can't remember his name, but he was a surgeon. So he had extensive knowledge of, the human anatomy and body and that kind of thing. So he could easily disembowel somebody if he wanted to, without much, hassle. He was actually put in a mental institution around the time the murder stopped. So that's interesting. Was that him? I have no idea, but there was a couple other people as well that were thought to be Jack the Ripper. People say that he was a demon and a phantom and all this kind of thing. So it's definitely very interesting. There's a lot of theories on Jack the Ripper. And like I said, if you even take 5 seconds and look up Jack the Ripper, you are going to find hundreds and hundreds of stories and theories and all this kind of thing. There's one theory I was reading. It was obviously just some stupid stoner idiot, but saying that he's still alive and he's some demon and blah, 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 blah. And he's responsible for any unsolved murders and that kind of thing. And it's like, this is just stupid. Some people say that he's like a pseudonym, and that there was multiple people who were Jack the Ripper, which is kind of interesting. But I find that's kind of a little weird. So personally, I believe he was just some crazy lunatic who was probably some kind of a doctor, wanted to kill some prostitutes. He did so, and then he screwed off. That's all there is to it. Obviously it would be nice to get one day maybe figure out what exactly that was. There are some stories I found of people claiming that they're police officers and they figured out the cases and blah, 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 blah. But nothing, again, that I think personally is concrete enough to say that these murders have been for sure solved and that this is it. Here's what happened. Here's who did it, blah, blah, blah. But enough about Jack the Ripper, because we're going to move on to a topic that everyone knows this. Everyone has a theory on this. It's probably the most well-known kind of topic on this list here today, and that is Bigfoot. Everyone knows the story, everyone has ideas and theories and blah, 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 blah. But Bigfoot is described as a large, hairy, muscular, ape-like creature, roughly 2 to 3 meters. That's 6 foot 7 inches to 9 foot 10 inches. Covered in hair, described as black, dark brown, or dark reddish, which is what I've mostly heard in my lifetime. Individuals claiming to have seen Bigfoot described large eyes, a pronounced brown ridge, and a large, low-set forehead. The top of the head has been described as rounded and crested, similar to a male gorilla with a strong, unpleasant smell. Some people have described that it smells very strongly of like a BO odor mixed with, I think it was just like garbage juice smell. Just very, very strong, unpleasant smell. The enormous footprints for which it is named are claimed to be as large as 24 inches, that's 60 centimeters long, and 8 inches wide, 20 centimeters. Some Bigfoot casts have also contained claw marks, making it likely that they come from a known animal such as a bear, which have 5 toes and 5 claws. Some people claim that Bigfoot is omnivorous and that he is mainly nocturnal. It's been cited thousands of times throughout the world, but specifically located in the Pacific Northwest. Some sightings have occurred in Colorado, in Green Falls Mountains, Colorado. An unknown creature believed to be a Bigfoot broke into a cabin, left several hairs behind, and footprints near the house. Other sightings of Bigfoot have occurred in the Pacific Northwest. An Army National Guard Sergeant Todd Neese claimed that in 1993 he saw 3 Bigfoot-type creatures in Oregon, which, I mean, Army General guard dude, why would he lie about that? I don't know. That seems a little weird. But this story is actually interesting. A prospector named Elmer Frombach was in a forest near Seattle, Washington, when a black hairy mass, which he believed was Bigfoot, began chasing him. Elmer was able to barely escape from the creature. However, some skeptics aren't convinced and want to see real proof of Bigfoot. Me personally, that story, it's interesting, but it was probably a bear or something. I mean, logically speaking, if he didn't get a good look at it, because he was running away from it, trying to escape with his life. No one is really certain if Bigfoot is real or not. There's hundreds of legends and that kind of thing. Everyone who has seen Bigfoot seems to have a different story. As far as his appearance, I think it's pretty interesting. But I mean, if Bigfoot was real, I think we would have found them by now. Or they. How come there are not big feet, so to speak, if there are multiple ones? Sometimes some of these people, what they saw, they claim like there was no way it was a bear. Could have been an escaped gorilla, maybe. Who knows? There's some theories I found of like people saying that they were just literally mountain people who, are just very hairy and don't bathe, so they stink, and they're very abnormally big people. There have been, counts of people dressing up as Bigfoot to scare people and that kind of thing. That famous photo of Bigfoot, everyone knows that one photo was a hoax because the guy admitted to it like 35 years later that he dressed up. So, I mean, a lot of theories, nothing, like I say, is concrete enough for me personally that lead to believe that Bigfoot is real. Until I would see it with my own eyes, I wouldn't believe it anyway. Like I say, is it some kind of an escaped gorilla? Maybe. Was it just a bear these people are seeing? Who knows? Was it a very smelly bear? Perhaps. If I was a black bear, I'd smell all the time. Who's going to care? So it's definitely interesting. I mean, you'll spend days going through all the shit there is on Bigfoot. So that's Bigfoot. Don't really have much else to say about it. If you guys have any theories, of course, be sure to let me know. Now, this next one, it's a short one. But I found this way too kind of weird and interesting to not include on my little list here. And that's ghost boats to Japan. Now, this has happened fairly recently. I know there's been reports of it this year as well, which I find very weird and very interesting. I think there's two very logical explanations for it that I found that seem the most likely, but I think it's still very interesting. And that's these mysterious ghost boats are wrecked wooden ships with decaying corpses on board, and they are washing up on the shores of Japan. Nearly a dozen boats carrying decomposing bodies were found off the country's northwest coast in just 1 month. Nearly a dozen boats with decaying bodies in 1 month. The Coast Guard said that in December, and that was of 2013, I believe. The first boat was found in October, and in November, officials discovered 10 bodies in 3 boats. Later, they found another boat with 6 skulls and a body that was nearly intact. So why were there skulls and a body? That's weird. Several signs point to North Korea. Most of the boats carried equipment and signs written in Korean, and one had a scrap of cloth resembling a torn bit of the North Korean flag. However, authorities have not been able to confirm their origin and why the people on board perished, which is very weird. More than 30 boats were found in 2015. There were 65 the year before and 80 in 2013. 80 of these boats were found in 2013. That is friggin' ridiculous. Some people believe that these boats may have been out in past tsunamis and that kind of thing, and they're just washing up now. Most people believe the most well-known thing is the fact that North Korea is crazy. And they are literally sending friggin' like boats of their dead over to Japan to mess with them. Maybe that's why. Are these just simply fishing boats from North Korea that are being lost at sea, and they're just happen to be showing up. I don't know. I find the one boat they found with a fully intact corpse and 6 skulls a little weird. That's why me personally, I believe it might be just a messed up message from North Korea. I don't know. I think it's very interesting. Definitely, I couldn't find a whole lot on it when I was looking it up. You know, some people believe it's a paranormal thing. Why are these people dying? Something's killing them. You know, another very well-known thing is the fact that there was a couple Japanese individuals who just believed that North Korea is sending these people out, you know, to catch fish, and if they don't catch a certain amount of fish or something, they aren't allowed entry back into the country, or something messed up like that, messed up North Korean shit. So that could be why. Maybe that's why they're all dying, because they're not catching any fish and they know they can't go home. Who knows? Definitely very interesting. I personally would love to know what the hell is going on there, but I definitely don't think it's anything like paranormal or anything like that. I think there's very logical explanations to it. Still very messed up though. Very messed up. Alright guys, just want to take a quick second here to give a big shout out to the first ever sponsor and big time supporter of the Hotter Show, my man Mr. Jason Reese over at Jaybird Digital Arts. Now what exactly does Jason do? Well, if you guys need any kind of logos, t-shirts, posters, album design, tickets, photo manipulation, you guys still with me? Advertising, business stationery, mailers, brochures, fine art, and literally anything else you can think of, Jaybird Digital Arts can create it. No project is just a generic template, and every single job is a new opportunity to create something unique. Jason's done all the Hotter Show logos, t-shirts, banners, and even a meme here and there, so I can promise you that you will love and be inspired by what Jason comes up with. You can find him on the web at www.jaybird, that's Jaybird, digitalarts.com. Or you can find him on Facebook under the Jaybird Digital Arts handle, as well as on Instagram. If you happen to use his services, be sure to let him know that TJ sent you. Alright, so moving off my list here, this is a very, very interesting thing. This story actually is touched on in an awesome TV show that if you guys have never heard of or seen, you should really check out. It is entitled Haven. And they kind of touch on this, and it's very interesting. Another kind of some messed up stuff from way back in the day, and that is the Roanoke colony. Some of you guys may know this story, some of you guys may not, but I'm going to tell you about it. So during the late 16th century, British were desperately trying to gain a foothold in the Americas, competing with the French and the Spanish at every step. But this colony in particular had bad luck from the very beginning. It's surprising how none of the colonists just came and said, you know what, this is a bad freaking idea. Let's just leave this place alone. However, Sir Walter Raleigh sent an expedition to Roanoke Island, now part of North Carolina. The ships got lost on the way, then they lost most of their food. When they reached, they blamed a local native village for stealing silverware. And I swear I'm not making this up. So a local native village, they claimed that they stole a silver cup from them. So they raided and burned it to the ground, the entire village. With the expedition leader needing to go back to England and get more supplies, most of the colonists abandoned the colony at the first opportunity. And so then, of course, enter the second expedition. Because Raleigh, that is how to pronounce his name, he just was not easily deterred. So he sent a much larger expedition to join up with the remnants of Roanoke and set up a large colony. This is where things get very messed up and very, very weird very quickly. When they arrived, all they found was an empty colony and a skeleton. One skeleton. It turns out that if you sack and loot a village, natives don't like it very much, obviously. Understandably fearing for their lives, the new expedition leader, John White, he went back to England to get more soldiers to help defend the colony. He left his granddaughter, who was actually the first British born on American soil, and he went home. Sadly, he couldn't return for another 3 years due to a little thing called the Spanish Armada. When he did finally make it back, again, this gets really weird. Very, very, very fast. When he returned, the entire colony was abandoned, including his granddaughter, with no sign of struggle. It seemed as if everyone just packed up and left in an orderly fashion. The only clue was a carving on a tree saying Croatoan. Before White left, he told the colonists to draw a cross if they were ever forced to leave by force, and there was no cross anywhere. So one of three things happened. Either they all moved to a new place and got captured, or they tried to return to England in some small boats and they just did not make it. Or they all just died shortly after White left. The last one seems more likely. So it seems most likely they had all died, but the whole Croatoan thing, what the hell is all that about? In the show, they talk about all this, and Croatoan being this like all-powerful being who can basically make people do whatever he wants on a whim. He can control them. So some people believe that he literally just came in and was like, so you guys are going to leave because you sacked this native village that I was very fond of. Very weird, very interesting stuff. What happened to these colonists, we really don't know. Still to this day, some people believe that they were forced out. I personally think it's most logical that they were forced out to probably leave and didn't have time to ride across, or they forgot to, or whatever the hell. And they just screwed off in their boats. They were much smaller ships, so they didn't make it across the sea, obviously. And that's probably most likely what happened. But the whole Croatoan thing was definitely very weird. I find it very disturbing in a way, because what the hell is that? What does that even mean? I didn't find much else in my research about the whole Croatoan thing, other than what I know about from Haven, which is kind of the legend of it, so to speak. So definitely very interesting stuff. I know a lot of people really enjoy this story. There's so many different theories about it and that kind of thing, but that's basically the gist of it. So definitely let me know what you thought happened. Either way, it was definitely a very sad ending for those colonists, even though they did sack an entire native village. Moving on, we have kind of another kind of very interesting, because there are so many theories about this. And there's actually a really cool TV show that's been inspired by this story, and that's the Oak Island Money Pit. There's been tons of books about it, and then this TV show, it's The Curse of the Oak Island Money Pit. To date, this treasure that is apparently in this pit has never been found, but tantalizing glimpses of the treasure have been reported. And then I actually have some theories I kind of just jotted down real quick here. All this stuff was found online, so if there's stuff you hear that you've read somewhere else or you read somewhere else, that's where it came from. Some of it I've kind of been putting in my own words and that kind of thing, but that's basically the gist of where this all is from. I have just compiled this in a list. The most popular theory is that the early 1800 pirate Captain Kidd, who often visited the Oak Island region for rest and relaxation and to repair his ships. It seemed he had a habit of burying part of the treasure he had plundered far and wide. So it's very commonly thought that this is his treasure pit that he made. And he made it a very kind of messed up, screwed up contraption, which we'll get into in a little bit, but of exactly what this thing is. A strange theory that I found is that the crown jewels of France, which went missing in 1791, the jewels were smuggled to a place that was just north of Oak Island, and it was often attacked by British. So it's thought that maybe that the French actually buried it there themselves. Very interesting to think that this pit, it could be treasure from a pirate, it could be the French, who knows what it is. There's tons of other theories, none that really make enough sense to talk about, but I think the Captain Kidd theory is pretty friggin' well known. But But as far as the actual pit, the excavation of this money pit has never been successful because of booby traps that protect it. In the 1860s, while excavating at the 90 feet level, the treasure hunters encountered soggy ground. Obviously, it was not too surprising because the pit was only 500 feet from the coastline. And high tide of the ocean was at the 32-foot level. At 93 feet, the water was more pronounced. At 98 feet, they struck an extra hard surface. They took the rest of the day off, and the next morning, they found the shaft of the pit filled with seawater to the 32-foot level. So basically, all that extra digging they did, they couldn't even do anything, so it was filled with water. We now know that the miners had inadvertently opened a series of channels to the beach, which was a booby trap, obviously, to protect the treasure. So there was a series of channels that would flood the tunnels when they get to a certain point. Many attempts have been made over the years to discover how the booby traps work. Coffer dams were built on the nearby beach, trying to stop the water flow, but it never ever seemed to work. In over 200 years that adventurers have searched for the money pit, for the treasure in the money pit, they have met oak log platforms every 10 feet to the 30-foot level. From there, a drill probe used in 1849 encountered multiple layers of charcoal, putty, and coconut fiber. At 98 feet, a spruce platform guarding 2 oak chests containing loose metal pieces was discovered. But the discoveries do not stop there. Continued drilling in 1897 found there were layers of wood and iron, then a 30-foot layer of blue clay. A hand-worked watertight mixture of clay, sand, and water. Then a 7-foot deep cement vault at 153 feet and an iron barrier at 171 feet. Early in the hunt of the Oak Island Money Pit treasure, an inscribed stone was found face down in the pit. There have been various interpretations made by what exactly it says, but the commonly known and viewed saying of this particular stone is 40 feet below 2 million pounds are buried. So that's interesting, the fact that they keep finding stuff. I mean, this is obviously a man-made pit. Everyone knows that. I haven't had a chance to watch the show. I feel like I'm going to because I'm really interested in this personally. The fact that it's Oak Island and Cape Breton is pretty funny to me. But 2 people currently own the island because it's privately owned and they're looking for it. So I mean, even to this day, this hunt for this treasure is still going. They're still digging, that kind of thing. Obviously, they still find booby traps is just not working out. The fact that it's been like 200 years and we still haven't figured it out yet is pretty crazy. But maybe we'll make it out. Maybe we'll figure it out one day, and in our lifetime, we'll be able to say, here's what's at the bottom of the money pit, and it's going to be nothing. They get all the way to the bottom. Let's say they make it all the way to the bottom of the pit, and they get in there, and there's nothing there. Wouldn't that just be the worst moment of your life? Like, you talk about disappointment. I mean, obviously, I want them to find something, and then it's interesting, and it's this crazy urban legend, and almost an urban legend at this point. Interesting. Probably my favorite treasure story in the world. But we may never, ever truly get to the bottom of this pit. Get it? Bottom of it. I suck. I'm sorry. But like I said, maybe one day we'll see. Who knows? But kind of getting back into the weird and not paranormal, but definitely weird, we have the Bermuda Triangle. Now, everyone knows about the Bermuda Triangle, but basically it's held responsible for the disappearance of countless airplanes and boats in the ocean between Florida, San Juan, and Bermuda. This area is one of the most heavily sailed and shipping lanes in the world, and vessels crossing through daily for ports in the Americas, Europe, and the Caribbean islands. So over the years, there's been a number of disappearances that happened in mysterious circumstances, some of which claim fall beyond the possibilities of human error, equipment failure, or natural disasters. Paranormal fans talk of a superstition of the laws of physics, of a suspension of the laws of physics, which is very, very weird. This story here, this is very weird to me. The first unexplained event occurred in the 1950s when the story of Flight 19 came to light, detailing a group of 5 U.S. Navy bombers on a training mission. The flight leader was reported to have said, "We are entering white water. Nothing seems right. We don't know where we are. The water is green, no white." So basically what happened with the story is, from what I can recall and from what I found, is they were on a training mission and they got lost. And they had said when one of them runs out of gas, they're all going to go in the water together. And then just nothing. There are no reports of anything, them not finding anything. So they were entering white water. Nothing seems right. We don't know where we are. The water is green, no white. Some Navy officials said the planes flew off to Mars, which is interesting. This always freaked me out as a kid, and it still does. What the hell happens in this area? If anything, is this a part of the Earth that is haunted? Is it a portal to another dimension? Should we be freaked out? Maybe not. In my research, I found that if you take another patch of ocean with comparable sea and air traffic, the Bermuda Triangle is responsible for no more disappearances than any other. So it's not the amount, it's the way that they happened. And there are tons of stories of disappearances in the Bermuda Triangle, but I find the Flight 19 one the most interesting. The fact that literally we're entering white water, no green, no white, we don't know where we are. Like that's freaky to me. But is it a logical explanation? Saying that, it's just human error and mechanical error or natural disasters that are causing these disappearances. That makes the most sense. Maybe not. Maybe there's a giant freaking kraken at the middle of it that randomly just hits shit out of the air and eats it. Who knows? I have no idea. But I think that maybe one day we'll figure it out. There's been countless TV shows and books explaining the Bermuda Triangle and that kind of thing, but nothing that's really concrete evidence over some of the disappearances that have happened. Because it just, I don't know. Maybe it's a portal to another universe. I have no idea, but I still find it very, very interesting. Me personally, just considering that, where all this technology we have and we still can't seem to figure out what goes on in this area when there are disappearances like this. So definitely very interesting. I know that people fly through the Bermuda Triangle every day and there's no crazy disappearances, but the fact that there have been any at all is definitely very interesting to me. And as a child, it definitely always freaked me out. Now, here's something that is very modern. Very, very modern. It happened in our lifetime. We all know about it. It was a huge, tragic thing that happened, but it's still unexplained. Again, there are countless stories and fan theories and theories of what happened and that kind of thing, but still nothing that is concrete enough, in my humble, very humble, uneducated opinion, that makes sense as to what happened with this. And that is flight MH370, the Malaysia Airlines flight. So basically, here's the story. A scheduled international passenger flight operated by Malaysia Airlines disappeared on March 8, 2014 while flying from Kuala Lumpur International Airport, Malaysia, to Beijing Capital International Airport in China. The aircraft last made voice contact with air traffic control at 1:19 March 8th. When it was over the South China Sea, less than an hour after takeoff. It disappeared from air traffic controller's radar screens at 1:22. So that was literally a couple minutes later. It disappeared completely. The Malaysia military radar continued to track the aircraft as it deviated westwards from its planned flight path, crossed the Malur Peninsula. It left the range of the Malaysia military scanner at 2:22. So that was an hour. Well, over the Armadian Sea. 200 nautical miles northwest of Penga. A lot of places I don't know how to pronounce this. I don't know my geography very well. In northwestern Malaysia. The aircraft, which was a Boeing 777, was carrying 12 Malaysian crew members, 227 passengers from 15 nations. This is a huge, gigantic aircraft that seemingly went off its course for an hour and then disappeared. Completely disappeared. We have no idea where this went. A multinational search effort began in the Gulf of Thailand and the South China Sea, whence the aircraft signal was last detected on the secondary surveillance radar and was soon extended to the Strait of Malacca and the Andaman Sea. Analysis of the satellite communication between the aircraft and the satellite communications network concluded that the flight continued until at least 8:19 and flew south into the southern Indian Ocean, although the precise location cannot be determined. Australia took charge of the search on March 17th, when the search moved to the southern Indian Ocean. On March 24th, the Malaysian government noted that the final location determined by the satellite communication is far from any possible landing sites, and concluded that flight MH370 ended in the southern Indian Ocean. Current phase of the search, the largest and most expensive in nation history, is a comprised survey of the seafloor about 1,800 kilometers southwest of Perth, Western Australia. It began October 2014. Nothing was found of the aircraft until July 29th, 2015, when a piece of marine debris, later confirmed to be the flaperon of Flight 370, was discovered washed ashore on Reunion Island. Although several additional small pieces of debris have been found, the bulk of the aircraft has still not been located, prompting many theories about its disappearance. It's just, how the hell do we lose that much? Like, how do we lose a friggin' aircraft that big? Just have no idea where it is. There's tons of theories. If you ever want to literally kill like an entire night, feel free to look them up because there's tons of stuff. I personally believe that just this hurts my brain to even think about this, because I don't have any idea how the hell we can lose an aircraft like this. There are tons of theories, like I said, people saying that it was hijacked, that all of the air traffic control people were killed. It was an attempted hijacking that for some reason went very wrong very quickly. There's one I saw that unfortunately seemed very weird, but it makes the most sense to me anyway, and it's tragic and I hate it, but it makes sense. Is that either someone on the crew or someone in the plane hijacked the flight, locked themselves in the control room or whatever the hell, and it was a suicide, and they decided they wanted to take all these people with them. But why did he go that far? Was it so important for him to go in that exact area? Who knows? Some people say that, maybe there was aliens involved and that kind of thing. Everyone's assumption is basically aliens were involved for everything that happens on this list that is unexplainable. But for me personally, it still freaks me out. I don't like flying to begin with. But then when I take into account the fact that stuff like this happens once in a while, it really freaks me out. But it'll keep me up at night sometimes thinking about it. Some people think it's just a stupid mystery and it's easily solved, that there's no, it was a hijacking, everyone just leave it alone. Let's just find the aircraft and figure it out from there. But either way, it doesn't make sense to me. Maybe it does. Maybe it was a hijacking. I don't know. Unfortunately, the murder-suicide thing seems to make the most sense to me, but who knows? So that's most of the list. Before I get to my number one mystery, even though this wasn't really like an official top 10 list, but I'll go back over some things I talked about if you guys want to check them out. The first thing I talked about was the Voynich manuscript, which is that book that we have no idea what it says. Of course, we have Stonehenge. We had Jack the Ripper. Talked about Bigfoot. Talked about the ghost boats to Japan. The Roanoke colony. Of course, the Oak Island money pit treasure. Of course, the Bermuda Triangle. And then, of course, Flight MH370. And now the number one unsolved mystery to me, the mystery that friggin' literally keeps me up. It kept me up at night when I first read about it and heard about it. I have a whole bunch of stuff on this because I find it the most weird and interesting. It's not as much of a mystery to me now that I did some serious research. I think there's some pretty logical explanations for everything. It was a very weird combination of stuff. But at the same time, I think there was so much still left unanswered. And that, my most messed up unsolved mystery to me, is the Dyatlov Pass incident. Here's the gist of it. There's a mountain in Russia called Dead Mountain, which already, why the friggin' hell would you go up this mountain? A gang of 10 people attempted to scale it from the most dangerous route possible. During the journey, one of the guys got sick and was left in a small village along the way. The other 9 continued forward, but very soon they realized they took a wrong turn, and with the rapidly worsening weather conditions and the storms that was brewing that hunkered down in the slope of the mountain. They weren't heard from since. That was it. They left that village and they were never heard from again. 10 days after their disappearance, a massive search party was assembled and they found their tent. It was filled with supplies, but was abandoned, and it seemed the campers cut through the tent from the inside in the dead of night and randomly ran out, dressed horribly inadequate for the sub-zero temperatures. At least most of them were. Now, this is what they found in detail here. Searchers found the group's abandoned and badly damaged tent. Campsite baffled the search party. The tent was half torn down, covered in snow, it was empty, and all the group's belongings and shoes had been left behind. Investigators said the tent had been cut from the inside, which is weird. 8 or 9 sets of footprints led by people who were wearing only socks, a single shoe, or even barefoot could be found, leading down towards the edge of the nearby woods on the opposite side of the pass, 1.5 kilometers to the northeast. However, after 500 meters, these tracks were covered with snow. At the forest edge under a large cedar, the searchers found the visible remains of a small fire, along with the first 2 bodies, both of which who were shoeless and dressed only in their underwear. The branches on the trees were broken up to 5 meters high, suggesting that one of the skiers had climbed up to look for something, perhaps the camp. Who knows what he was looking for. Between the cedar and the camp, the search found 3 more corpses, which was Dayatov, who was the leader of the expedition, and then 2 other people as well, who seemed to have died in poses suggesting that they were attempting to return to the tent. They were found separately at distances of 300, 480, and 630 meters from the tree. Searching for the remaining 4 travelers took more than 2 months. They were found on May 4th under 4 meters of snow in a ravine 75 meters farther into the woods from the cedar tree. These 4 were better dressed than the others, and there were signs that those who had died first apparently relinquished their clothes to the others. So basically, what had happened with this one particular group is obviously 4 of them left from this little campsite. From what I gather, 2 of them obviously had perished quickly at the campfire thing. Something made all these people leave. They started the fire. Some of them tried to make it back to the tent and didn't. Some of them went the other way, obviously maybe to try and get back to the camp or something. They didn't make it. So that's very, very weird. Some of them were wearing fur coats. One of them had a piece of wool wrapped from someone else's pants. Very weird. Another notable finding besides the 4 remaining hikers was a camera around one of the hikers' necks. The camera was not reported as being part of the equipment. Also, the film on the camera was reported to have been damaged by water. Some claim is bullshit and that the government's hiding something. So that's interesting. Journalists reporting on the available parts of the inquest files claim that it states, this is what the official kind of report states, 6 of the group members died of hypothermia and 3 of fatal injuries. There were no indications of other people nearby apart from the 9 travelers. The tent had been ripped open from within. The victims had died 6 to 8 hours after their last meal. Tracers from the camp showed that all group members left the campsite on their own accord on foot. To dispel the theory of an attack by indigenous people, the fatal injuries that occurred to 3 of the bodies that had the fatal injuries, no human could have done this kind of an attack. The blows were too strong and no soft tissue had been damaged. Forensic radiation tests had shown high doses of radioactive communication on the clothes of a few of the victims, that's friggin' weird. Released documents contain no information about the condition of the skiers' internal organs. Again, very weird. There were no survivors of this incident. At the time, the verdict of the group members all died because of compelling natural forces. The inquest officially ceased in 1959 as a result of the absence of a guilty party. The files were sent to a secret archive, and the photocopies of the cases became available only in the 1990s, although some parts were missing. Again, what the hell? However, some weird findings and information I found just on this particular thing here. There was someone who attended the funeral. 5 of the 5 hikers recalls their skin had a deep brown tan, which is weird. Another group of hikers who was about 50 kilometers south from the incident, so they weren't really that close by, but they reported that they saw strange orange spheres in the night sky to the north on the night of the incident. Similar spheres were observed in adjacent areas during the period from February to March 1959 by various independent witnesses, so including the meteorologist service and the military. So that's weird. Some suggest report that there was a great deal of scrap metal in and around the area, leading to speculation that the military had utilized the area secretively. So some accepted theories of what happened. Something that I forgot to mention was one of the people had their tongue ripped out. Fractured skulls, tongue ripped out. What the fuck happened? Okay? What happened in this situation? Well, here's some actual theories. The most commonly accepted one is kind of a combination of two that makes the most sense to me, but there's still some questions I have. The most common one is that it was an avalanche. The group woke up in a panic. They cut their way out of the tent because an avalanche had covered the entrance to their tent, or because they were scared that an avalanche was imminent. Better to have potentially repairable slit in the tent than risking being buried alive under tons of snow, obviously. They were poorly clothed because they had been sleeping. They ran to safety in the nearby woods. The trees would help slow oncoming snow. In the darkness, they got separated into 2 or 3 groups. One group made a fire, hence the burned hands, which I didn't realize that part till now. And the fireplace they found, obviously. Well, the others tried to return to the tent, recover their clothing, since the danger had apparently passed. But it was too cold, and they froze to death before they could locate their tent in the darkness. At some point, some of the clothes may have been recovered or swapped from the dead, which, I mean, really, that's not that weird. If you're in a situation like that and someone dies, I'd take their clothes too. But at any rate, the group of 4 whose bodies were most severely damaged were caught in an avalanche and buried under 13 feet of snow, more than enough to account for compelling natural force that the medical examiner had described. And then the one person's tongue was likely removed by scavengers, which apparently is ordinary. I don't know. That's friggin' weird to me, man. That's weird. Another kind of widely accepted thing, and kind of what makes the most sense to me is a mixture of these two, the avalanche and then this. Science Times posted that the hiker's death was caused by hypothermia, which can induce a behavior known as paradoxal undressing, in which hypothermic subjects remove their clothes in response to the perceived feelings of burning warmth. The fact that 6 of the 9 hikers died of hypothermia is undisputed. So they definitely died of hypothermia. The hypothesis doesn't address why the hikers fled the tent in the first place, because the temperature inside the tent would not have been low enough to indicate this undressing. So, personally what I think is that maybe there was some kind of an avalanche. They ran out, some of them not dressed, some of them were dressed, obviously. They got separated in the night. Most of them died of hypothermia. Some of them fell in a ravine. The other ones, were buried in another avalanche. That's what I accept now that happened. What I force myself to accept because I don't want to think about it anymore. But some more kind of more crazy things that does explain some of the weird findings was that there was some military testing being done in this area, and it was covered up because no one was supposed to be in this area, obviously, so that's why they covered it up. There are records of parachute mines being tested by the Russian military in that area around the time the hikers were there. Parachute mines detonate a meter or two before they hit the ground and produce similar damage to those experienced by the hikers. Heavy internal damage with very little external trauma. There were also glowing orbs reported in the sky in that general vicinity, as I mentioned earlier, possibly caused by such an ordnance. This theory uses animals to account for the missing nose, tongue, and the leg of a certain victim. See, there's more stuff that I'm finding as I'm reading here that just messes me up. The missing tongue, mainly. The missing nose is bullshit. I didn't read that anywhere else. And then other injuries. Some people believe that the bodies were moved, which is interesting. Photos of the tent show that it was apparently erected incorrectly, something that these experienced hikers are not likely to have done. So that's interesting. Maybe there was some kind of military testing. Some of them got injured. They fled. And then once it had stopped, maybe that's why the dude climbed the tree to see what was going on. They tried to make it back to their tent, and they couldn't. that's why also there would be some radiation poisoning in them, some signs of radiation. That would make sense to me anyway. That makes sense. I don't know, very weird stuff. But another theory that is the most far-fetched one, but it does actually make some some stuff makes sense more. The Discovery Channel did a special on the Russian Yeti. It extruded the cryptozoology theory that this group of Russians were killed by a Russian Yeti. Very, very messed up. But the injuries sustained by the skier were so grave and extraordinary that could have only been inflicted by an inhumanly strong creature. The show focuses on that person's missing tongue, claiming it must have been ripped out. As it happens, a tongue-eating Yeti is by far the least likely explanation. The missing parts aspect of this case is a familiar one to skeptics and has been invoked in countless other unsolved mysteries, tons of different stuff. But basically, if it was a Yeti who did this, I mean, that's still very weird. They fled the one person. But that's the thing that doesn't make sense about this theory, and this is why I'm just deducing it right now. If they had encountered a Yeti, they obviously, if they saw it, they probably photographed it. It was probably stalking them if this was the case. None of the skiers mentioned anything about it in their journals or anything. I guess they found their journals. They found nothing weird. One thing, however, that the episode does admit, and this doesn't necessarily prove that this is what it is. Apparently one of the skiers had written in their journal, "The snowman exists." Is that a thing? I don't know. I mean, there's some weird stuff with this story. I don't know what the friggin' hell is going on around here with this story. Like I said, me personally, I think that it was a mixture of an avalanche, and the hypothermia theory does make sense. And then they're obviously them falling down a ravine or whatever. They were probably making their way back down the mountain and falling in a ravine. That is what it is. That doesn't seem that weird to me. But what really messes me up is the fact that why is there radiation? That really messes me up. Some people say that it was probably used for testing that area, and it was just remnants of the radiation. Maybe that's why. Why was the person's tongue ripped out? Is that normal? Are there animals that do that? Not from my research. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe it literally was a mixture of an avalanche and friggin' hypothermia. That makes the most sense to me. And that's what I want to tell myself happened. But then I think about the radiation and the tongue ripped out, and I go, what the friggin' hell is going on? The fact that it is not fully opened, the case files and that kind of thing, is very weird. I know that there is an organization that is trying to help preserve the memories of these campers and of these skiers by trying to get everything open completely so that they can get all the details of what happened. But who knows? I sure as hell don't. I have no idea. But it just kind of still remains a bit of a mystery. Like most of the things on this list. I think there's a couple things that I talked about that we kind of deduced together in talking and with some of my findings. There's definitely some stuff that I think makes more sense to me now. There's still some stuff that I think is not unanswered at all. So be sure to let me know what you guys think. Be sure to let me know in the comments. Send me an email, hit me up on Facebook, whatever you think. I think this was a very interesting episode. I've definitely never done anything like this before, but I am interested in this kind of thing. So maybe I'll do something else like this again. Who knows? Let me know what you guys think. If you guys like these kind of me almost exploring topics like this, I think it's interesting. And if you have any theories, hit me up, please. I would love to hear them. I love to talk to you guys about anything, but that's it. That's my list. That's the podcast. Before I go any further, as I mentioned in my intro, I have a song to play for you guys that I've been waiting to play for you guys for a long time. This band finally released this track talking about the unsolved and the unknown in a way. I have Fear the Unknown's first single. That's right. Fear the Unknown's first single. You guys know Fear the Unknown. Talked about them before on the podcast. Of course, Mav Samard, who was on the podcast before, is his band. And they're going to have probably Cody, the other guitar player in Fear the Unknown, on the podcast at some point. Adam, Nathan, and Connor, all those guys. I'd love to have them on the podcast at some point, but I wanted to play this song for you guys. It is a killer track. It is called Termination. It is awesome. It is a very killer track. I cannot wait for you guys to hear it. Crank it up. Again, this is Fear the Unknown with their new single, Termination. Let's hear it. Alright, so that was the track. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Keep your eye on Fear the Unknown. You can find them on Facebook. Awesome things to come from that band, guys. Very, very killer stuff. Can't wait to hear more. I think they're going to be releasing more in the next couple of months, hopefully. We'll see what happens. Maybe have to have the guys on the podcast before the EP comes out or whatever is going on with that there. I'll have to talk to Mav. I haven't talked to him in a little while, so I'll have to hit him up and see what's going on there. But that is going to do it for me here today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in, regardless of how you tune in, whether you are on the SoundCloud. If you are, be sure to hit that follow button and leave a like on this podcast. Let me know what you thought of it. Comment away if you have any theories about some of the unsolved mysteries that I talked about here today. If you are listening on the YouTube, be sure to leave a like or dislike on this video, depending on what you thought of it. And of course, comment your life away. No flame wars, please. And last but not least, if you are listening on the iTunes, which you guys know is the easiest way to listen to The Harder Show, then be sure to subscribe on the iTunes so you don't even have to think about it. Every time you go onto your iTunes device, if you're choosing, it will be automatically downloaded. Don't even think about it. It's so easy, guys. And of course, if you are there, maybe leave a little rating for The Harder Show. I appreciate it. And also, if you're listening on some kind of an app that I don't know about, or an app I know about, like Podcast Addict, shout out to Podcast Addict, because I use that app myself now and I love it. Let me know. Let me know how you're listening so I can kind of keep track of what's going on. But that is going to do it for me today, guys. You are awesome. Thank you so much again for tuning in, and I will catch you guys next time on The Harder Show. Take it easy.